This Steve Jones Show podcast is now loading. The Steve Jones Show podcast is presented by Sunbury Motor Company, Purdy Insurance, and bringing you an in-depth look at Penn State sports and more. This is the Steve Jones Show on News Radio 1070 WKOK. The Steve Jones Show is presented by Purdy Insurance, Brewers Outlet, and Sunbury Motor Company. Now from the Sunbury Motor Studio, here's Steve Jones.
Great to be with you in this half hour, being brought to you by our good friends at Brewers Outlet, Reagan Street in Sunbury, the beverage supermarket. Imports, domestics, microbrews, the best selection of beer anywhere. Wine coolers, water, soft drinks, lots and lots of snacks. They roast their peanuts fresh and hot every day. 6 great flavors of slushies. Ready to drink cocktails, High Noon, Jack Daniels, Crown Royal. And the pickle bar led by the Barrels and the Dills, indeed second to none. All at Brewers Outlet, Reagan Street in Sunbury, the beverage supermarket. It is always a pleasure on my part because I've had the privilege of working with him so many wonderful years. Thomas Frank Carr on 3.com, Blue White Illustrated, one of the truly outstanding analysts out there. T. Frank, welcome back to the show. It's great to have you with us.
Hi, Steve. How you doing today?
I'm doing well, doing very well. Okay,
good.
So very few people break down tape as well as you do, video as well as you do. So I'll start with Drew Allar. And Drew Allar has been a constant subject for you for the last 3 years now. What are you seeing in his footwork and his mechanics? What do you like, and is there anything out there that gives you pause?
That's a great question. So I've been diving a lot, and I think the biggest difference in Drew is the decision-making and the things that are kind of mental with his grasp of the offense. The footwork and things like that, I think, is where he tends to go in and out in terms of consistency, and that's also a very mental thing because we've seen him do it perfectly, throw off platform, be accurate from multiple situations. To me, when those things start to get a little wobbly, I try to look for reasons why, and not just like the individual throw, but like let's take the game plan against FIU, where after it played out, what we saw, there were a lot of deep shots. James Franklin talked about getting Devontae Ross involved in the game. And it's just my personal observation that a lot of times in those situations when the game involves being aggressive with the football, pushing it downfield, I think Drew gets amped up. And when Drew gets amped up or stimulated by, the moment is when he tends to revert to some of his bad habits. And so that's my view of, how his mechanics and those things have, not been as consistent. And I don't necessarily believe in the big game thing. It's more to me about like the game plan specific stuff of what's being expected of him in that game. Go back to the Big Ten championship game against Oregon, which is pretty relevant for this week. They came out and they wanted to be aggressive, and they were going fast. They were using tempo. They were having him push the ball down the field. And then there were just moments where, on one play, he rides the option handoff a little too long, and there's the ball on the ground. And it's just, I think that's an area where he's getting better. He's talked about, the one-play mentality and flushing things after mistakes. Everyone has their weaknesses. Everyone has the things that they, that they struggle with and that they want to get better at. And I think that's one area where we've seen him develop, believe it or not, where it's not just a whole game thing where we've seen it in the past. This past weekend or this past non-conference season, I really only saw one game where the footwork and the mechanics were a thing. And it was really for half of a game. And then he came back in the second half and was much more effective. So we'll see how all of that plays out this weekend. But it's a conversation like on the details of is he opening his foot or opening his hip? Is he striding? I've I've learned to not go down too deep into those rabbit holes, because there are people out there like Brad Mendler who are actually very good at that stuff, who know much more than I do, and that can kind of speak to those very nitty-gritty details when it comes to footwork and mechanics and things like that.
You did do, though, a deep dive in breaking down a game of, was it his fault? Was it a receiver? Was it just how it was defended, which I thought was an outstanding article. It's interesting because the interception, there's no doubt, the interception he throws, it's a bad play. But what led to the bad play is the receiver that was the primary ran the wrong route. And because he ran the wrong route, now, you just have to take it and just throw it away. He didn't, and it ended up being a pick. But when you broke that down, I know you always go in with it objectively, but were you surprised at all by the results as to how many really weren't his fault and how many actually were?
Yeah, I actually was. And part of it was, so there was this narrative of Drew Allar's not seeing the field, and he's not making decisions. He's not being whatever with the football. And, a lot of this comes from, our view of the game, which is, to a fan's no fault of their own, you don't get to see the full picture. You get to see maybe 20 of the 22 players on a play if you're lucky. And so there's a part of the game that happens off the screen you don't see. And that's the part where I think it's my job to go in and say, okay, what's actually happening on these plays when I can show you these examples. And I don't have it in front of me, but I believe there was a drop ball and 3 wide receiver errors on plays. So I went through and I charted all of his incompletions, because I'm not going to argue about a ball that's complete. We don't have time. I don't have time in my day to go through every single one of his passes, although I do every weekend on the Blue White Illustrated message board. I break down every play on offense and defense and give an answer and, at least some comment on a play, and have people with video, you can watch along and see what I'm seeing when I'm watching the film. But in this particular article, I just did the incompletions. And here's the thing. Villanova doesn't care about your opinion of Drew Allar. They're going to do whatever they want to do on that play to take away his primary read and put him in a situation where there are no throws available. And there are a couple of plays where that was absolutely the case, where they're dropping 8 defenders into coverage so they can do things with their formations and where they place defenders on the field that take away what Penn State wants to do. Schematically, is it concerning that they were able to predict where the first read was going? A little bit, but any team that's going to rush just 3 defensive linemen is conceding a certain part of the game and is operating a tactic that means hey, we're not on the same playing field here. For the most part, that's how I feel when you're playing drop 8 14 times in a game. So of those incompletions, I believe it was 3 were quarterback error, meaning he missed the throw. It was an inaccurate throw or he missed the read. One being that interception you referenced. And a vast majority of the incompletions were dead plays where the coverage won, and then receiver errors where they ran a wrong route. The overthrow to Devontae Ross, I actually went back to last year against Maryland to find Amari Evans running the same play. And you can go to BlueWhiteIllustrated.com. You can check out the article, and you can see the video. Drew puts the ball in the exact same spot in the end zone for both routes. Now, remind you, it is the exact same play, formation, alignment, same targeted route. He puts the ball between the blocks on the E in the end zone in both of those throws. So on the broadcast, when Mark Elfrich is saying oh, Drew missed that throw and he should have thrown that flat, that's incorrect. The receiver ran the wrong route. The receiver was supposed to make that a vertical push, and Drew's throwing to a spot on the field because that's the spot he's hit for 2 years in a row. So, these are the details and the context that go into James Franklin has talked about, people not knowing what's going on the play. And I don't know what's going on the play. I'm just trying to provide as much context and research, and I've watched this offense for long enough to try and get as close as I can to the truth. And a lot of times we're making these snap judgments based on what we see on the game film when we're watching it live from TV, and then we never revisit our opinions or our thoughts because, that's honestly, for fans, that's probably what they should be doing. But then that's what I try to do is go back and find, okay, what did we learn that was incorrect, and how do we correct that to find out what the actual truth of the situation is?
Which then brings me to the pressure part of it. Neither quarterback has faced a lot of pressure through their opening games of the season. How has Drew been when he's been pressured? In other words, especially blitzed. And I got a feeling the answer is going to be a little bit different than what people are thinking of here. I think it's actually a lot better than people realize.
Yeah, he's the top quarterback in the Big Ten when it comes to his productivity against the blitz. And
you can't
this
say
is something that I thought early in his career he had to get better at, and he did.
Frank, you can't say that. People don't believe you. No, I'm just kidding.
I know.
How could you possibly say that?
This is the thing, right? So we talked about we talked about the game plan and the ambient pressure of Drew's got to throw the ball down the field, and I think it is fair to say he is somewhat uncomfortable with throwing the ball down the field and wanting to follow the coaching and not overthrow his receiver. So despite the fact that he's got the strongest arm in America, some hyperbole there, he doesn't put a lot of mustard on the ball because if he does, he's going to overthrow everybody. It's kind of like the strong man that doesn't want to hurt a fly. And I think that is just he has never found the right amount of power to put on the ball so that he's following the coaching and throwing the ball correctly. But to your point of the actual pressure put on him by blitzing, he's 1,600 yards and 15 touchdowns. Both of those are first in the Big Ten since the start of the 2024 season. So Oregon does not produce pressure on the quarterback. I would even argue that their defense is not set up to produce pressure. It's part of the compromise they have of wanting to play odd and even fronts, so they don't have a true pass rusher. They got a bunch of big-bodied physical guys. Uiagalelei is not. He reminds me of a Jack Sawyer or of a JT Tuimoloau, where these guys are physical, edge-contained guys that can get pressure, but they're not. That's not their primary skill set. So if they're going to blitz, I think that is an advantage for Penn State with the unknown that Dante Moore hasn't played enough games for us to even know what he's like against pressure or when you blitz him. So there are some of these unknown factors in that particular matchup. But when it comes to Allar, he has been very good when under actual pressure and when he's been actually asked to throw the football into a blitz. Those things, he does not turn the ball over and he makes good decisions, and he has been a productive player in those situations.
Yeah, that's if people wonder why, for example, Sawyer and JTT weren't first-round picks. The reason is because of the sack stuff. I mean, why is Stewart at Tennessee a first-round pick of the Cincinnati Bengals? Because they thought he was a pressure guy off the edge, right?
Yep.
That's the reason why. But conversely, Penn State has been a team that gets pressure, especially off the edge. Is that fair?
Yeah, absolutely. It's something that I know Penn State fans were concerned about with losing Abdul Carter, and Chaz Coleman's been great. It's the problem here is both teams haven't played another team that is at the caliber that they'll face this weekend. So they're going to be their best opponent so far. So a lot of these numbers are going to change. A lot of these things that I wrote about this week at Blue White Illustrated, they should come down in the natural progression of playing better opponents. Absolutely. But in the context, we agree, Steve, that neither team has faced a quality top 25 team so far, right?
That's right.
So the top 5 pass rushers in terms of winning their blocks and getting pressure on the quarterback, all 5 of them wear Penn State blue and white. Chaz Coleman, his win rate of how many times he's defeated a block and created a pressure is 42%. That's insanely high. Some of that is in late game situations, but there's also been in situations where he closed the game out, where FIU was in a situation where they were trying to come back in a game, and he was able to get a sack fumble and create pressure. Denied in the Sutton, and the one that I'm really interested in and seeing how this progresses is Xavier Gilliam. Penn State hasn't really had an interior pass rusher with consistent ability to generate, distress for the offense. I give Robert Windsor a little credit here. I think he gets a little bit overlooked, but obviously Kevin Gibbons is the name everybody remembers. Mm-hmm. Gilliam is at 27% winning on pass rushes in the interior. Then it's Ivan Kamaju, Jalen Harvey, and then you get to Uiagalelei, who's at just under 15% of his rushes are generating pressure. So this is what I'm talking about when I say I don't think they're as talented at rushing pass rushing as they were in the Big Ten championship game last year without Derek Harmon, who's now a Steeler and a first-round draft pick. They bring slightly less athletic burst at the quarterback this year, and that's their high watermark is Uiagalelei off the edge. So for the pressure battle, absolutely Penn State has a massive advantage in the trenches.
Which now brings me to something else that's interesting. When Jim Knowles came here, one of the areas that you looked at his Oklahoma State and his Ohio State stops was the use, and he described this in his opening press conference, the use of, quote, the jack.
Yeah.
Chaz Coleman seemed to do that in the Villanova game. Explain to everybody what that means and how Coleman handled it.
Steve, do you have another 40 minutes? Because this is my favorite thing of the season so far. It was kind of like, I imagine that's how people feel like when they see a UFO on film when they're watching back their cell phone footage, or they feel like they saw the Loch Ness Monster or something. I was like, did I just see what I saw? The great thing is, like, I have high res video, and it's not some grainy cell phone footage. So here's what it is. Jim Knowles, his philosophy here is that you want to create as much problem for the offense as possible pre-snap and post-snap, and everyone wants to be multiple up front on defense. And what does multiple mean? We've talked about it a lot this year with James Franklin, Jim Knowles. Everyone mentions multiple. It means you can go from a 3-down defensive line front with 3 defenders that are actually on the defensive line to a 4-down front. The jack linebacker, in essence, allows him to play a 3-down front with a guy who roams around the front and inserts, and he can go from a 3-down concept to a 4-down concept whenever he wants. So this jack linebacker is a hybrid player who's big enough to handle run fits like a defensive lineman, but is athletic enough in space that if you need to, you could drop him, you could blitz him into a gap, you could move him into the flat, you could do a bunch of these different things. And he's talked about it as, I'm calling plays for that player, and that player has a specific role on the team. So what we saw against Villanova was literally one play, and I went back and I looked at all the data, I looked at all the film for Penn State's defense the rest of the season. The only time they've ever been in a 3-down front has been on 3rd and long, where they have been in their pass rush package. Yep. This was 2nd and 13. He lined up as a 2 yards off the ball and attacked a specific gap on an RPO play. So, like, that is the definition of everything I saw from the jack linebacker at Oklahoma State when he was using it. Whether they use it or not, how it's deployed, when it happens, I have no clue. He talked about Chaz Coleman. Here's the other thing: is like he talked about Chaz Coleman as a liking everything about him, but they don't know how he would perform against a team that can run the ball and has more sand in their pants as a run blocking unit, which would describe this particular team. Right. If you wanted to maybe protect somebody like Chaz Coleman and give them matchup advantages, you might move them around the formation a little bit.
Well, what helps is that Coleman's to play that position, you have to have the physical traits he has, but you have to be smart. And he's just a kid, but you can tell he's smart as to how he plays out there. I mean, he's got ways to go, but you can tell he's smart. You have to be smart to play that spot.
Yeah, he's been, and this is no disrespect, but this is just a comparison. For example, he's made fewer mistakes as a run defender in terms of his fit and making sure he's in the right gap and not getting beat out by a defender than Jalen Harvey, who's a year older. And, they're both, and Jalen Harvey's been in the defense since it got here with Jim Knowles in February, so he even has a time advantage on Chaz Coleman. Those are really impressive things. And again, I think Jalen Harvey is playing just fine, but it's abnormal for a freshman to be one of the more productive and trustworthy players when it comes to where is he and is he doing what he's supposed to be doing on every play. It's just super impressive, and that speaks to what you just talked about of you have to be smart. You have to be intelligent to be able to do all of those things, especially given the time horizon we're talking about with Chaz Coleman. So it stands to reason if you're saying, I'm going to give this guy detailed responsibilities on a play, and it's somebody who has to be able to handle it, and it's going to be very specific, that feels like if it's a freshman like Chaz Coleman, he might be able to handle that role in that situation.
Very impressive indeed. As always, T. Frank, tremendous. Appreciate it. Hope Zoe's doing great, and look forward to seeing you this weekend.
Yep, same to you, Steve. Enjoy the next couple hours. It's going to get crazy here. It probably already is. I'm heading downtown to meet up with some friends for the first time in a while, so I'm excited to see how long it takes me to get downtown.
Enjoy it. Okay, appreciate it. Hey, thanks so much. Have a great time.
You too. See you, Steve.
The outstanding Thomas Frank Carr on 3.com, Blue White Illustrated. And this half hour has been brought to you by our good friends at Brewers Outlet, Reagan Street in Sunbury, the beverage supermarket. Imports, domestics, microbrews, the best selection of beer anywhere. Wine coolers, water, soft drinks, snacks. They roast their peanuts fresh and out every day. 6 great flavors of slushies. And ready-to-drink cocktails, High Noon, Jack Daniels, Crown Royal. The Pickle Bar, led by my personal favorites, the Barrels and the Dills, indeed second to none. All at Brewers Outlet, Reagan Street in Sunbury, the beverage supermarket, as we continue on News Radio 1070 WKOK.
Party time, game time, or just fun time. Doesn't matter what time it is because it's Brewers Outlet time. The beverage supermarket has the area's largest beer selection. Imports, microbrews, ciders, and domestics. Pick from over 100 ice-cold 12-packs and dozens of 24-ounce singles. Soda, snacks, hot sauces, fresh roasted peanuts. Make it one-stop party shopping, and don't forget the Pickle Bar. So whatever you're celebrating or just doing it up, Brewers Outlet, Reagan Street, Sunbury wants to see you. And thank you for your years of patronage.
Hey, when's the street fair this year? You mean the 46th annual Selinsgrove Market Street Festival? Yeah, that. Yeah, well, it's happening on Saturday, September 27th from 8:30 to 4 p.m. with lots of shopping, food, fun, and music, as usual, right in the heart of downtown Selinsgrove. The Selinsgrove Area High School Marching Band kicks off the day, followed by live performances from Selinsgrove Dance Studio, Burns Taekwondo, and more entertainment all day long. They'll have around 160 or more vendors featuring handmade jewelry, local honey, crafts, games, civic groups, and exciting newsstands to discover. Kids will love the petting zoo. Plus, there'll be plenty of family fun for all ages. But the best part is the delicious food, of course. And don't worry about parking. Free parking and shuttle services are available at the Selinsgrove Area High School. So mark your calendar, Saturday, September 27th. See everything about the Selinsgrove Market Street Festival at selinsgroveprojects.org.
September means the return of football, everything pumpkin spice, and the September Serrano sale at Sunbury Motors Kia.
Wanna see ya in a Kia. Sunbury Motors Kia.
That's right, the September Serrano sale is on, and SMC has 10 2025 Kia Serrano turbo models with $1,000 in Kia Finance bonus cash and as low as 0% APR financing for 48 months. The 2025 Kia Serrano hybrids have as low as 0.9% APR for 48 months with an additional $500 in Kia Finance bonus cash. And Sunbury Motors Kia has 2025 Kia Serrano S all-wheel drive models starting at just over $35,000. Remember, every new Kia comes with a 10-year, 100,000-mile limited powertrain warranty. It's a September to remember. The September Serrano sale at Sunbury Motors Kia on the Strip in Hummel's Wharf and at sunburymotorskia.com.